What if I told you that right before everything in your life changes, there is a sign so rare that most people see it only once, and almost no one recognizes it? This is not a sign you read about in books. It's not something people talk about openly, and it doesn't come with a warning label. It appears quietly, briefly, and if you miss it, life moves on, as if nothing happened. But if you notice it, everything begins to shift. Across history, across cultures, and even in modern psychology, there is a pattern that shows up right before major life transformations. Not gradual improvement, not slow progress, sudden change. The kind of change people later describe as, "My life split into before and after." This video is about that moment. Because right before a major leap, something strange happens inside you. Your thoughts change. Your emotions feel unfamiliar. The world around you starts behaving differently. And most people mistake these signals for stress, confusion, or coincidence. They label it as a bad phase, or exhaustion, or just one of those weeks. But it's not. It's the final signal before a quantum shift. A moment where the old version of you can no longer exist, and the new one hasn't fully arrived yet. In this video, you'll learn what that sign feels like when it shows up, not in theory, not in vague language, but in real, human terms. You'll understand why it feels uncomfortable, why it often appears during uncertainty, and why it only shows up once. You'll also learn why this moment matters more than motivation, more than discipline, more than effort. Because once this sign appears, your job is no longer to push harder. Your job is to recognize what's happening. Most people don't. And that's why the opportunity passes them by. Science hints at this through sudden state changes. Psychology hints at it through identity shifts. Even ancient traditions describe it as the point where the old self dissolves before rebirth. Different languages. Same moment. A narrow doorway. If you walk through it consciously, life doesn't just improve. It reorganizes. Your relationships change. Your decisions change. Your sense of time changes. And strangely, once you've crossed it, you can't go back, even if you try. By the end of this video, you won't just know what this rare sign is. You'll understand why it feels the way it does, why it often arrives when things seem unclear, and why seeing this video at this exact moment might not be random at all. Stay with me until the end. Because once you recognize this sign, you'll never see your life the same way again. Before we talk about the sign itself, we need to understand what a quantum jump really means in the context of life. The phrase sounds complex, almost scientific, but the idea is simple. A quantum jump is not about slow improvement. It is not about climbing step by step. It is about a sudden shift, where life changes faster than logic can explain. Before we talk about the experience, it helps to clear one confusion. A quantum jump is not magic, and it is not luck. It is a change in state. One moment, reality looks one way. The next moment, it does not. Nothing appears to move in between, yet everything is different. This is why people struggle to explain it when it happens to them. Before we talk about how it feels, imagine this metaphor. Think of a radio stuck between stations. You hear noise, static confusion. Then with a tiny adjustment, the signal locks in. Suddenly, the sound is clear. The music is sharp. Nothing slowly improved. The station did not fade in over time. It snapped into place. That is how a quantum jump works in life. Before we talk about results, understand this. Most people believe progress must be slow. They expect effort to equal time. They believe change must hurt for a long while before it pays off. A quantum jump bypasses that rule. It does not wait for permission from the past. It does not negotiate with old habits. It simply replaces one reality with another. Before we talk about outcomes, consider how identity plays a role. A quantum jump happens when the way you see yourself changes first. Not your job, not your bank account, not your surroundings. The inner shift happens quietly. Then reality rushes to catch up. This is why the external change feels instant, even though the internal shift was forming beneath the surface. Before we talk about speed, notice how different this is from normal growth. Normal growth feels like pushing a heavy object uphill. You feel every step. A quantum jump feels like stepping onto an elevator. The doors close. You feel a brief pause. Then suddenly, you are on a higher floor. You did not climb the stairs, yet you arrived. Before we talk about control, understand that you cannot force a quantum jump through effort alone. Trying harder does not create it. Straining does not speed it up. It happens when alignment replaces resistance. When clarity replaces confusion. When the old version of you no longer fits the direction you are moving. Before we talk about the moment itself, recognize why these jumps feel shocking. The mind expects continuity. It expects yesterday to look like today. A quantum jump breaks that expectation. It compresses time. It makes months of change happen in a single decision, a single realization, or a single moment of truth. Before we talk about what comes next, remember this. A quantum jump is not about becoming someone new. It is about returning to a version of yourself that was always possible, but never fully activated. When the switch flips, reality does not slowly adjust. It responds immediately. Before we talk about how this applies to your life, it helps to know where the term originally came from. The phrase quantum jump was not born in self-help or motivation. It came from physics. In the quantum world, electrons do not move smoothly from one state to another. They do not slide. They do not travel a visible path. They exist at one energy level, and then suddenly appear at another. Before we talk about meaning, understand how strange this is. An electron does not slowly climb upward. There is no in-between position. One moment it is here. The next moment it is there. The jump is instant. Scientists call it a quantum leap or quantum jump because the change happens without crossing the space in between. Before we talk about life shifts, notice why this idea caught people's attention. For centuries humans believed all change was gradual, cause then effect, step then step. Quantum physics challenged that belief. It showed that at the smallest level of reality, sudden change is not an exception. It is a rule. Before we talk about manifestation, this is where the metaphor begins. When people use the term quantum jump in personal growth, they are not claiming life follows physics exactly. They are pointing to the pattern of sudden change, the pattern of skipping stages that seem required, the pattern of reality reorganizing itself faster than expected. Before we talk about belief, understand why this language matters. The mind is trained to expect slow improvement. Years of effort, long struggles. When someone experiences a big shift that happens quickly, language fails them. "I don't know how it happened," becomes a common phrase. The term quantum jump gives shape to that experience. Before we talk about results, see how this shows up in real life. Someone changes how they see themselves, and within weeks their environment changes. A decision is made, and doors open that were closed for years. A pattern breaks and momentum appears, where there was none before. The change feels disproportionate to the effort. Before we talk about why it works, focus on the core idea. In manifestation, a quantum jump refers to a shift in internal state that produces an outsized external result. The inner change does not move gradually. It locks into a new level. Once that happens, reality adjusts around it. Before we talk about effort, this is important. Just like electrons do not drift between levels, people do not always evolve in smooth lines. Sometimes identity shifts in an instant. A realization lands. A belief collapses. A new self-image forms. The outer world follows, not slowly, but decisively. Before we talk about control, understand the limitation. In physics, an electron cannot be forced to sit between states. In life, you cannot live fully in two identities at once. When the shift happens, the old level is no longer available. This is why quantum jumps feel irreversible. Before we talk about what triggers them, recognize why people describe these moments as life-changing. They feel sudden. They feel clean. And once they happen, the path forward looks completely different than it did before. Before we talk about external change, we have to look at what shifts first. A quantum jump never begins in the outside world. It begins quietly, internally, where no one else can see it. Long before circumstances change, something in your identity starts to loosen its grip. Before we talk about results, understand this clearly. Reality does not respond to what you want. It responds to who you believe you are. Your beliefs act like instructions. They tell life what is possible, what is allowed, and what feels familiar. When those instructions change, reality has no choice but to adjust. Before we talk about timing, notice how subtle this shift can be. Sometimes it feels like a simple thought. Other times it feels like a deep sense of knowing. You start reacting differently to situations that once controlled you. The same triggers appear, but they no longer have power. That is the first sign that the inner world is changing. Before we talk about action, understand that this is not about pretending or forcing confidence. An identity shift is not an affirmation repeated out loud. It is a quiet decision your nervous system accepts as true. When that happens, your behavior changes without effort. You stop chasing. You stop proving. You stop tolerating what no longer matches who you are becoming. Before we talk about manifestation, see the order of events. First the belief shifts, then the perception shifts. Then choices shift. Only after that does the environment respond. Most people try to reverse this order. They wait for proof outside before changing inside. A quantum jump happens when that order flips. Before we talk about speed, this explains why change can feel sudden. The internal work may have been happening for months or years unnoticed. Once the belief locks in, the external world catches up fast. It looks like a miracle from the outside. Inside it feels inevitable. Before we talk about resistance, recognize why discomfort often shows up here. The old identity does not leave quietly. It questions the new one. It brings doubt. It creates emotional waves. This is not failure. This is integration. The system is reorganizing itself. Before we talk about control, notice what you naturally stop doing. You stop over-explaining. You stop asking for permission. You stop waiting for validation. These changes are not planned. They are automatic. They signal that the internal shift is already complete. Before we talk about evidence, remember this. Life always mirrors the inner world with a delay. The delay exists to test stability. Can you hold the new identity without immediate reward? When you can, the outer change arrives faster than expected. Before we talk about the leap itself, understand this final point. You do not rise into a new reality by effort. You fall into it when your inner world makes the old reality impossible to return to. Before we talk about the jump itself, it's important to notice what happens right before it. Life doesn't usually change without warning. Instead, small but intense shifts begin to appear, quietly at first, then more clearly. These changes don't look dramatic on the surface, but they feel powerful on the inside. Before we talk about meaning, understand that these shifts are not random. They show up as subtle disruptions in your normal patterns. Things that once felt comfortable start to feel heavy. Routines lose their grip. Conversations feel different. You may not be able to explain why, but something feels off in a way that can't be ignored. Before we talk about signs, notice the emotional layer. Your reactions become sharper. Joy feels brighter. Frustration feels louder. Silence feels deeper. Emotions no longer sit in the background. They demand attention. This intensity is not chaos. It is awareness turning up. Before we talk about behavior, observe how your choices start to change. You pause where you once rushed. You hesitate before agreeing to things that used to feel automatic. You begin saying no without rehearsing an explanation. These moments are small, but they carry weight. They signal a shift in alignment. Before we talk about logic, understand why the mind struggles here. These changes don't fit into clear plans or timelines. There is no checklist. You can't measure them easily. That's why people often dismiss them. But dismissing them does not stop the process. It only delays understanding. Before we talk about relationships, notice how interactions begin to shift. Some people feel closer without effort. Others feel distant without conflict. This isn't about right or wrong. It's about resonance changing. What matched the old version of you may no longer match the new one forming underneath. Before we talk about external events, pay attention to how life responds. Opportunities appear that feel oddly timed. Obstacles show up that force decisions you've been avoiding. These are not punishments. They are pressure points, designed to reveal what no longer fits. Before we talk about fear, recognize why this phase feels unsettling. The old structure is loosening, but the new one is not fully built yet. You are standing between identities. This space feels unfamiliar. It can feel lonely. But it is also precise. It prepares you for the jump. Before we talk about trust, understand that these shifts are deeper than normal change. Normal change feels gradual and predictable. These shifts feel charged. They come with a sense of importance, even when nothing dramatic is happening. You feel like something is aligning behind the scenes. Before we talk about what comes next, remember this. When these small but intense shifts appear, the jump is no longer a possibility. It is already in motion. Before we talk about the external signs, we need to focus on what happens inside your mind. One of the strongest signals appears as clarity. Not the loud, excited kind. The quiet kind that feels steady and undeniable. Suddenly, you know what you want without debating it. Before we talk about confidence, notice how different this feels from desire. Wanting something usually comes with doubt. You question timing. You question worth. You question whether it's realistic. This clarity is different. It doesn't ask for approval. It simply exists, calm and certain. Before we talk about the inner voice, understand why it becomes sharper. For a long time that voice was buried under noise. Expectations, opinions, fear. Now the noise fades. The signal strengthens. When the inner voice speaks, it cuts through confusion with precision. Before we talk about intuition, pay attention to how decisions become easier. You no longer weigh every option endlessly. Some paths feel wrong immediately. Others feel right without explanation. This is not impulsiveness. It is alignment becoming obvious. Before we talk about resistance, notice what stops working. Distractions lose their power. Procrastination feels uncomfortable. You can no longer ignore what you know without feeling tension inside. The inner voice does not shout. It persists. And persistence is harder to escape. Before we talk about action, observe how this clarity changes behavior. You stop asking for advice that contradicts what you already know. You listen, but you don't outsource your decisions. You trust your internal compass more than external reassurance. Before we talk about fear, understand that clarity does not remove it. Fear may still exist, but it no longer leads. It becomes background noise instead of the driver. You move forward not because fear is gone, but because clarity is stronger. Before we talk about urgency, notice the shift in patience. You are no longer rushing, yet you are no longer waiting. There is a sense of timing, a feeling that something is ready to move. This balance creates momentum without force. Before we talk about confusion, recognize the contrast. The clearer your inner voice becomes, the harder it is to tolerate situations that don't match it. You feel discomfort when you stay in places that no longer fit. This discomfort is guidance, not punishment. Before we talk about the jump itself, remember this. When your inner voice becomes impossible to ignore, the decision has already been made at a deeper level. The path forward is no longer a question. It is a matter of alignment catching up. Before we talk about meaning, pay attention to what starts happening around you. Unusual coincidences begin to appear, not once, not twice, but repeatedly, in ways that feel almost intentional. At first you brush them off. You tell yourself it's random. Then it happens again. Before we talk about patterns, notice the timing.
These coincidences show up right when you're thinking about something important. A name you haven't heard in years appears in a conversation. A message arrives at the exact moment you were questioning a decision. Information finds you without effort. Before we talk about logic, understand why the mind resists this. The brain is trained to look for cause and effect. It wants clean explanations. Coincidences disrupt that comfort. They don't follow a straight line. They feel layered, like pieces aligning across different parts of life. Before we talk about scale, see how precise these moments are. It's not just similar themes. It's specific words, exact numbers, repeated symbols. The same idea appearing through unrelated sources. When it happens once, it's easy to dismiss. When it happens over and over, dismissal becomes harder. Before we talk about attention, notice what changes in you. You become more alert, more present. You start pausing after each coincidence, asking yourself what just happened. This heightened awareness is part of the shift. Life begins to feel more responsive, less mechanical. Before we talk about guidance, recognize that these moments often point toward a direction. They confirm a thought. They redirect attention. They interrupt hesitation. They don't force action, but they reduce doubt. It feels like reality is nudging you forward without pushing. Before we talk about disbelief, understand why many people ignore this phase. They fear reading too much into things. They worry about being wrong, so they downplay what they're seeing. But ignoring synchronicity doesn't stop it. It only delays recognition. Before we talk about alignment, notice how these coincidences cluster. They don't appear randomly across years. They compress into a short window of time, days or weeks where everything seems connected. This compression signals acceleration. Something is moving faster than usual. Before we talk about control, remember this is not about searching for signs. These coincidences show up without effort. You don't chase them, you notice them. That difference matters. Forced meaning feels heavy. Natural synchronicity feels light, almost playful. Before we talk about the leap itself, understand this final detail. When coincidences become too precise to ignore, reality is no longer passive. It is responding. And response always comes before a jump. Before we talk about external events, notice what happens to your sense of time. It no longer feels stable. Some moments stretch longer than they should. Others disappear in an instant. Hours pass like minutes, or minutes feel heavy and slow. This shift is subtle, but once you notice it, you can't unsee it. Before we talk about explanation, understand that this isn't about clocks or schedules. Time still moves forward. Days still pass. But your experience of it changes. The inner sense of timing loosens, as if life is no longer moving at a steady pace, but adjusting itself around you. Before we talk about slowness, pay attention to certain moments that feel suspended. Conversations feel deeper. Silence feels louder. You catch details you usually miss. In these moments, awareness expands. It feels like life is asking you to stay present, to fully register what is happening before moving on. Before we talk about speed, notice the opposite effect. Entire days collapse into a blur. Tasks complete themselves. Decisions happen quickly. You look back and wonder how so much happened in so little time. Momentum builds without strain, as if resistance has quietly stepped aside. Before we talk about focus, observe how your attention sharpens. When time slows, you feel grounded. When time speeds up, you feel carried. Neither state feels chaotic. Both feel purposeful. This is what makes the experience strange. It doesn't feel like losing control. It feels like being guided. Before we talk about stress, recognize the difference. Stress makes time feel pressured and overwhelming. This shift feels clean. Even when things move fast, there is a sense of order. Even when things slow down, there is a sense of meaning. That contrast matters. Before we talk about perception, understand why this happens. When internal alignment increases, awareness changes. You are no longer stuck replaying the past or worrying about the future. Attention moves into the present moment, and the present moment does not obey the same sense of time. Before we talk about the environment, notice how life seems to cooperate. Delays protect you. Speed serves you. Missed opportunities reveal better ones. Timing starts to feel precise rather than frustrating, as if events are arranging themselves around a larger shift. Before we talk about fear, acknowledge that this can feel unsettling. The mind wants predictability. It wants time to behave. When it doesn't, the ego feels unstable. But beneath that discomfort is a deeper calm, a sense that something important is aligning. Before we talk about what comes next, remember this. When time begins to bend, life is no longer moving randomly. It is preparing space. And space always comes before transformation. And now we arrive at the moment everyone waits for, the point right before the quantum jump. Everything we've talked about, the inner clarity, the unusual coincidences, the shifting sense of time, leads to this single unmistakable instant. It's the moment where the old version of you dissolves and the new one begins to emerge. A moment that cannot be ignored, cannot be repeated, and cannot be forced. Right at this point, life feels different. Not gradually, not slowly, but instantly. The energy around you shifts. Your perspective expands. What once seemed impossible now feels inevitable. It's subtle, yet undeniable. And once you recognize it, you understand that nothing will ever be the same again. This is the one moment where the inner world and the outer world finally align. It's where everything you've prepared for, everything you've been unknowingly building inside, bursts into reality. And the truth is, most people never notice it, because they are too caught up in the past or distracted by the future. But when you see it, you know it, deeply and clearly. So pay attention, stay present, listen to your inner voice, notice the coincidences, feel the changes in time, because this moment is your signal, your doorway, your shift. It's the exact point where a quantum jump becomes real, and your life begins to move in a new direction. If this video helped you understand this rare moment, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more insights that can guide you through your own quantum jumps. Don't miss the next step in your transformation. It's closer than you think.